All right, welcome. My name is Jay Grammond with Jay Grammond Photography, and I want to thank you for taking time out of your evening or your afternoon slash evening uh, tonight to be with us. It's really great that you do that. Tuning in for this episode of the Creatives Moment podcast, and we're featuring photographer and author Paul Horsted tonight. Paul and
Thanks for
I
having me.
Yeah, Paul and I go back. I'm thinking to 2019 for sure when
Okay.
I contacted you and asked you to give a lunch and learn thing at the Black Hills photo shootout with us, which you
Yeah.
did in where were we? We were in um uh drawing a blank on the town there.
It's over
Lee.
a week ago, so I'm
Yeah,
lost. But
yeah.
yeah,
That's a
no,
long time ago. Yeah.
I appreciate
Over
that.
and
Yeah, it's been a
over the
while.
yeah. And so it's been a while, but been following your work ever since and excited to
Okay.
talk to you, Nate. So welcome.
I appreciate it. Yeah. I've been looking forward to this. Thank you.
Very good. And I'll mention to people too. I see there's some chat in there already. Um, yeah, if you have questions as we go, type it into the chat, and I'll try and keep an eye on it. And if it's real pertinent and timely, I'll try to jump in and ask the question. Otherwise, we'll answer them at the end as well. So,
Great.
are you ready to go, Paul?
You bet.
All right. So we'll start out. We'll go way back, not way back, but back to the childhood days. Um, what Can you take us back to your childhood and like
Sure.
where did you grow up and what was it like for you as a
Yeah.
kid?
Yeah. My parents were from Eastern South Dakota, farm kids, Depression era, and they still live in Sioux Falls. They're still in their 90s, but doing great. And everything I am, I owe to them. But my dad went to SDSU, and by he wanted to go into farming, but by almost a fluke of circumstance, he ended up getting an engineering degree and moving to the Twin Cities eventually, and that's where I was born. So I was born in St. Paul, lived up there till sixth grade. But then we moved back to South Dakota. I lived in Mitchell for a year, and most of my formative years were in Brandon Valley, and that's where I started taking pictures. But I had again, thanks to my parents, really pretty normal and great upbringing in Minnesota and eastern South Dakota.
Okay, awesome. Um, were you a creative child or was there any signs that photography might be something you want to do
Great question.
early
No,
on?
not probably not the well, depends on what you call. I started taking pictures in about ninth grade. So my first camera was an Instamatic 110, cartridge camera about this big. And, I hauled that to
Mhm.
camp and stuff. But my first serious camera, when that kind of emerged was in early in high school. And I got on the yearbook because I had pretty good writing skills. I guess my English teacher encouraged me to join the yearbook, and then they needed some pictures, so I borrowed my dad's. My first serious camera was his 1956 Voigtlander that he'd picked up in Germany when he was in the army over there, and shot basketball and so on with that. And Not probably three games. My third game, I was photographing. Here comes the editor of the local weekly paper in Brandon. This is the Brandon Valley Reporter, which was a great paper back then, a weekly paper. And he says, I'm really tired of coming to these basketball games every week. Would you
Mhm.
take pictures of these and then we'll put them in the paper and you can come and use the darkroom anytime you want? And I was like, that's great. So of course I was all over that. And that sort of led to a lifetime of buying more camera equipment than I need and trying to do learn about that. And but I ended up working in the weekly Brandon paper along with the high school paper and yearbook while all through high school, and that was a great experience. Being on a newspaper that young, and that was sort of my dream job back then, was being a newspaper photographer. Once I kind of comprehended what that was about back then. That was 1977, 78, 79. So well back
Interesting.
into the film era. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. But you got to experience the whole darkroom thing
Yeah,
and the
that's
film
right.
and yeah.
Thank heavens. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
awesome.
Very good. And what was that camera that you started with when you were starting to do the serious
Yeah, it
work?
was called a Voigtlander, and they do
Voigtlander.
stuff. Yeah, Voigtlander or Voigtländer, I believe it is in German, but not quite a Leica. They weren't quite on that level, but they were fine German craftsmanship, and the front end would pop open, and then it was 35 millimeter, but And I still have it, still have that camera at home.
Hmm.
So yeah,
That was one of my questions, is if you still had yours. I suppose a lot of photographers probably have their first camera. I do, but I haven't had that many to collect.
yeah.
But yeah, you
I
got to
went
put
through
the
it too, but yeah, I would buy and sell back in the early days just because you needed the money, another hundred
yeah,
bucks to get another, Nikon or whatever. And so
move up to the
that
next
kind of
thing.
went. Yep, yeah.
So was sports kind of your main thing that really interested you at first, or news in general, or
Not really. It was just sort of entree, you might say, to, that we always needed sports photos for the high school yearbook and newspaper and then, yeah, and the weekly paper. So I did end up shooting some sports. I never thought I was especially good at it or anything, but I kind of got the hang of it after a while. We were using flash and then trying to decide if we should push the film, as they used to call it, to take pictures without flash in a really dark gymnasium somewhere because the flash was kind of annoying for the players sometimes. Just that sort of thing I was always working on and trying new developers and films. But no, I was shooting once I got on the weekly paper. I was shooting features and thunderstorms and blizzards and car accidents, and I kind of went right into
Hmm.
sort of that gamut of news photography. And I was really fortunate. The editors there, Bud and Sam Jones, and I think they're still around. I've talked to Sam in recent years. That was a woman, Bud's wife, and they were very encouraging and wanted pictures. They won several awards for design of nice newspaper design back then because they were really doing things in a new way that wasn't being done in a lot of weekly papers. And so it was a very nice looking paper, and they wanted big photos, and I was all over that. So I was shooting as much as
Nice.
I could, all kinds of stuff, just kids playing at the pool or running around town to see what was going on. So
Oh, sure.
good experience.
Yeah, it's builds up a good experience for you, that's for sure.
Yeah,
Um, did you have any early mentors in that portion, or maybe your next steps, who kind of helped guide you or
yeah,
open doors
absolutely.
for you?
Absolutely. I mean, I don't know how I could have done it otherwise. And so Bud and Sam I mentioned, and there
Yeah.
were other people at the high school. Loila Hunking was one of my teachers. A lot of folks know her. She was a legislator as well as an activist in Sioux Falls and just an outstanding journalism teacher, Loila Hunking. But Mrs. Peterson, the English teacher, but I I sort of well, this might be jumping ahead a little, but I had mentors at the Argus Leader, the newspaper in Sioux Falls as well.
Mm.
That really, I think that's where I kind of elevated a little bit, and learned a lot because I was shooting every day for that paper once I got on board there. But that was Frank Clock. I know a lot of folks know Frank, and Lloyd Cunningham was there for years and years. A lot of folks know him from the old days at the Argus Leader. So yeah, those were all. I'm probably forgetting some too, but you're always
Yeah,
learning from everybody around you.
sure. Awesome. Well, let's kind of transition into
Okay.
the near and dear to you, the book type questions.
Nice. Okay.
Um,
Sure.
so when did the idea of creating books first come into mind?
Um, when I got rejected by a publisher, no, uh, just briefly, back in I got married in 1990, married my partner and spouse Camille Reiner, and I started freelancing while she was teaching and keeping us afloat financially. So I started freelancing in, I hate to say it, 1990. I mean, that's when I started, and we were in
Mm,
Michigan for a few years, but we moved back to South Dakota. She was teaching in college over there, and like I said, keeping the boat afloat while I was traveling back to South Dakota, taking pictures in the Black Hills, doing a lot of work here, and I was doing stock photography, which means you could license pictures for money back then. It's a little harder to do now, although that still goes on. But I had photos I would take of, say, Mount Rushmore that some insurance company would want a picture of that for their ad. And it's almost quaint now, but I mean, they would call me on the phone. I would send them a slide. They'd look at, yeah,
mhm.
we'll take it. It's going to be, we'd agree on a price, might be a few hundred to a few $1,000s. It could be really lucrative. And so I did that for quite a while till the internet came along, kind of kiboshed that when stuff could, be bought for a dime or a nickel or free on the internet. But that was just the way it was. But at the same time, desktop publishing was kind of coming on board. We were able to you could design something on your Macintosh computer, and fortunately for me, Camille, my partner of 35 years, is expert graphic designer, taught that in college. She's a fine artist as well, printmaker, and just a wonderful artist, and has those skills. And so I'd had a couple of books published by other publishers, never really worked out as well as I wanted it to. I never quite got what I was after, and so we had this project about the 1874 Custer expedition come into our sphere, you might say, through a chain of circumstance. And long story short, we were turned down or told it would be 5 years before a certain local historical entity could publish that, and we just decided we would try to do it ourselves. And
Mm.
I had the model to follow of Greg Lotz in Sioux Falls. He had published a book and had found a printer and gone through a lot of these steps, and kind of could give me a couple of signposts, to say the least, to get us on that path. And then Camille was already well versed in preparing files on the computer, and that was a little harder to do. This was in 2001, so it was still kind of the early days for that. But we were able to figure all that out, and working with my co-author Ernest Graffy, or Ernie Graffy, who was my co-author on that book, and he also had a lot of graphic skills from his newspaper experience. We realized we could do it. I guess that's what it boiled down to. We
Nice.
had Greg Lotza as an example of somebody who had done it. He'll tell you he learned about it from another guy in Minnesota that had published the book before him, and it was just kind of a mental exercise I had to get my head around. Hey, we're going to do this ourselves instead of handing it to someone else, and it's been a very satisfying journey doing that.
Excellent. I'll have to pick your brain about that sometime down the
Sure.
road because I've got
Yeah.
some other projects going. But
Great.
before we move on, I was gonna tell you about with in terms of stock sales now. I
Yeah.
try to do Adobe stock, and every
Yeah.
every once every pretty randomly, but I'll get an email. You made 99 cents. So it's not as lucrative
Oh my
maybe. And
gosh.
for some people it
I'll tell
is.
you, the most I ever made on a stock sale, I made over, close to 10 grand on one photo. I mean,
Wow.
that was in the old days before inflation. So it was feasible, but yeah, that really got killed off by mass, uploads of internet. And so I'm not complaining. It's just the way of the world. I've always tried to sort of accept you can't change it, try something else. And like I said, this opened a
Yeah.
door with desktop publishing that, uh, you know, that was great because of that same revolution. So
I think that's kind of fascinating too, how like things change over time now, like with AI and everything else. But like
yeah,
with you, the traditional way of publishing wasn't maybe going to work out, so you figured out your own way to do it with other people's help. And
yeah,
it's interesting to me to see how people adjust and make it
yeah, you
work.
try. Yeah,
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
So going back to your very first book, and I don't know if that's the
Okay.
one that you were just talking about
I'll
that.
yeah, I got the cover here just to kind of reference, but this
Oh
is
yeah,
the updated
Exploring
edition.
with
Yeah,
Krista.
that's what we're talking about. Okay.
And that's your very first one. And what was the inspiration for that one? Was it
Yeah,
your idea or how did that happen?
not entirely by any means. And um, so again, we're always building on what other people have done. I hope I don't sound like I invented all of this myself or anything of the sort. But South Dakota State University had published a book where back in 1974 they did a book of then and now photos using. I just want to show at least one of these so people that aren't familiar with it can kind of see what we're talking about. So the photo on this side was taken in 1874, one of the first pictures ever taken in the Black Hills. And SDSU had a couple of forestry people who were looking to see, well, how has the forest changed since Custer was here in 1874.
Mhm.
So in 1974, they published a book where they had found most of these photo sites in the Black Hills and deserve full credit for that. And but that book went out of print, and in 2000, SDSU literally told us, we're not going to print it again. No one could find copies anywhere. And I'd met Ernie Graffy, my co-author, eventually on this book, who had already done a lot of work on diaries and journals and lots of research on this expedition. And so we decided to take this up. I'm summarizing a lot of stuff that happened in, over about a 3-year period, but and we got it all pretty well packaged and we're ready to maybe talk to a publisher as we thought we would. And then, like I said, we kind of got, I don't know,
Hmm.
it wasn't going to be a priority and we decided to do it ourselves. So yeah, the inspiration came from that earlier book. This is a completely different book in full color and there's, uh, dozens of pages of maps and diaries, and we mapped the route of this 110 wagons that you can see on the cover here, kind of going down the Castle Creek Valley
Oh,
there. I mean, we took this to a completely different level than that earlier book, but again, we were starting with what they had started us on, the then and now photos and some basic history. And this is something that this is came out in 2002 originally. We fully updated it in 2023, the fourth edition, as it says on the cover there, added 36 pages and just glorious, glorious color.
hmm.
I'm really pleased with how that came out. And I was able to shoot it digitally this time. I shot all the new pictures in 2022, 2021, and as opposed to film that I used for the first edition back in 2002. And digital gives you many advantages over film for I'm trying to put my camera exactly where that person did, 150 years ago. With digital, you have many more options to correct and to fix things, of course, than you do on
Yeah,
film. So I hope I answered your question, but this is
you did. Yeah.
this book still almost every day I get somebody reference to it. I just had a call from somebody in Deadwood wondering about somebody who had been on this expedition. Last week, a guy called me from Minnesota. He had the original diary for one of the soldiers who was on this expedition. I got to see that and copy it. And
Oh,
so, I mean, there's just always, it just keeps on, going. But yeah, I'm sorry. There we go. That's probably enough
it,
unless you have any other
it
questions about that.
it has a life of its own. It kind of
Yeah, it
it's
really,
keeps
really
growing
does.
and
Yeah, right.
well,
So
and it's interesting because when you're researching history, sometimes you find the old journal that was in someone's attic for all this time.
exactly.
Somebody finally
Yeah.
found it, and here's new information all of a
Well,
sudden.
what happened here is we published that first edition in 2002. A woman was touring the Black Hills, stopped at a gift shop out by Custer, and said, "Oh, nice book. This sounds a lot like that old diary we've got up in like you just said, we've got it home in St. Paul." And it turned out
Oh,
her great grandfather was a wagon driver on this expedition, and so that new diary, then we incorporated that into this new edition as well as a previous book we did, and it, yeah, it's unbelievable. Yep.
that's fascinating. My wife has her like two times great grandfather, I think, and his
Okay.
brother were on the Sibley expedition up
Oh
in
my
North
gosh,
Dakota.
I know what
And
you're talking about. Right.
yeah, and I've always thought in the back of my mind, how cool would it be if somehow one of those two guys wrote journal somewhere and it
Yeah, or send a
pops up
letter
in the family
home
somewhere.
or
Yeah,
right,
anything.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
Yeah,
keep my
boy.
fingers crossed on
That's
that one.
cool. Look, I got one quick tip. Whatever town they came from, check the newspapers around that time.
Oh,
Sometimes
sure.
wrote home and then they would publish them in the paper. Like we heard from
Yeah.
Roger out in the Black Hills,
Oh,
and
sure.
they put them in the paper. But yeah, just a slim possibility of something
Yeah,
like
that's a good
happening.
idea.
Or they report that he came home after the expedition and maybe he says something interesting, But
Yeah, cool. The way I found out about it was from reading his obituary in a family history book.
very
And
cool.
I had already been studying
Wow.
the event, so it was interesting
Yeah,
to count,
that's
you keep
awesome.
getting new things. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so for you, was there a moment when an opportunity came along to you and you decided to say yes, and that kind of changed the trajectory of things for you?
Oh
Maybe
boy.
this book again.
Yeah. Yeah, going into publishing, and again, it's not just me, it's my partner Camille and other people that help us, but we pretty much do it ourselves, us too,
Mhm.
including all the marketing and stuff. So it's a big job. But that was a big step. I do think back to when I was in high school and I heard about a thing called junior achievement. And I don't know if they still even have that. I think they have some form of it, but you could sign up to be in a class with business people. And I found out that the Argus leader had a staff that came and helped with junior achievement. And a light bulb went on in my head, and I said, "Now, if there's people from the Argus, these were like gods to me. I was over in Brandon nearby,
Mhm.
wanting to talk to people like that about what their work was about. And so I definitely reached out and got into junior achievement. And the next thing I know, I'm sitting there with Frank Klock, who was one of the staff photographers at that time. And then not too long after that, I'm shooting, weekend sports and that at the Argus Leader while I was still in high school, which was just unbelievable for me at the time. And you're there on a slow, a news day Sunday, and all of a sudden, whatever, there's a plane crash or a robbery or something, and I'm the only guy there with a camera, so they're sending me off to cover that. And that's the kind of thing that really builds experience and is a special memory. And I was only at the Argus for 2 years full time and part time, maybe another year or so off and on. But that was a big formative experience because as a photographer, you're taking pictures every single day. And we didn't have that feedback on the back of the camera, but we would be developing the film and then it would be in the paper the next day. And if you screwed something up, you didn't screw it up the next day. That was that one time, and then you fixed it and did better next time. And hopefully, and whether it was lighting or posing or focus or whatever it might have been. And so, yeah, that was a really good experience. And it kind of all came from, I mean, I could have just gone home and watched, Saturday Night Live or something, but
Yeah,
I
right.
I decided I was going to try to. And I wasn't always that way. I mean, I was plenty lazy at times too, as an 18-year-old, but I did, or 17-year-old, but I did reach out and it kind of paid off, I guess. At least it seems like it did to me.
Sure, yeah. All right. So along those lines, but in the opposite way, have you ever taken a big creative risk that didn't quite work out how you planned it, and then did you learn something from that?
Oh no, everything is just perfect
All the
every
time,
time,
yeah.
right?
Everything coming up roses
Oh
every day,
gosh.
huh?
Yeah, um, we did a book. I think the second book we did was kind of a nature wildlife book about Custer State Park. And, we sold a lot of them, but I can do wildlife photography and nature and I enjoy it. And I've gotten some beautiful images, but I didn't quite have the chops for that. And we were living in Custer at the time though, and there wasn't a good book on Custer State Park really at the time. And so we thought we'd do that. And I think I'm finally about ready to. I have about 10 copies left after 25
Mm,
years.
yeah,
I think those will be disappearing pretty soon. But it just wasn't our greatest work. And maybe that was a good lesson. I mean, I don't think we lost money on it or anything, but it just wasn't a big seller and maybe not the best book I have ever done. But it kind of, like I said, okay, well, let's pick up again. Then shortly after that, I went back to the technique that I learned with that book on the Custer expedition, which was that idea of putting my camera where somebody had a long time ago, and applied that to another book, and that really did well. I mean, that I kind of found my calling or my niche, I guess. And so in 2005, here I'll just wave that in front of the camera here real quick. We published The Black Hills Yesterday and Today, which is a great big thick coffee table book full of. Oh, that's not a good example. Let me see here. Oh, that's sort of, you can see that. That's Belle Fourche during a flood. And then I got permission to go up on the roof of the courthouse to shoot that one. But it's full of pictures like that, which just sort of match up past and present. And I, once we did the Custer expedition book, it just didn't occur to me right away. Maybe I should do that again with other photos. And so these are pictures taken by other photographers. There's Sturgis Rally there. These are pictures taken by many other photographers over, from 1874 until the 1940s. So we're not using just one photographer's work, using multiple photographers. And this book continues. I mean, this is 20 years or going on 17 years, still sells very well and is kind of a model for what I'm working on right now. A little different, except I'm trying to do a book on the whole state of South Dakota. So yeah,
sure.
but yeah,
Cool.
that I got back in that path, and I'll just mention quickly, I've also done one like this for Yellowstone National Park,
Mm,
and then I did a book with 24 national parks. Same idea. I went to Zion, Badlands, Grand Canyon, Yosemite, East Coast, and did a book that has sold out, and we're probably not going to reprint it. But so yeah, that led me into the path I'm on today.
So that first then and now thing with Custer was
Yeah.
like that was the model, and
Yeah.
almost all your books after that have been
Right,
some version
exactly
of that.
right. I
Huh.
I fell in love with that technique. I did other photography along the way, jobs. I shot weddings for a while. I'm not doing that anymore, but I mean, I shot commercial stuff, some stock photography. I mean, I was doing other photography, but this idea of then and now, which uh, that really appealed to me. And there are other people that do this. I didn't invent that either. I've seen examples of repeat photography that date back to the 1920s. I mean, somebody literally stood where Custer's photographer did back then and tried to repeat. I have examples of that and others since then. So lots of people are doing that around the world, even right now. What I'm really trying to do now and have been for several years is really fine tune it. And I really am really trying to get my camera, in that same exact position, which sometimes is very challenging, but especially when there's objects real close to the camera, you just move a little bit and it shifts a lot. So
Yeah.
yeah, I take a lot of pride in that. I'm trying to apply that to what I'm doing right now.
Yeah, it looks like it's been a pretty big success for you because of all the your
Oh,
how well your books
thanks.
have done, and it's
Well, yeah, that one's
yeah.
done well and helped, and thanks to our readers. I mean, again, these are self-directed and self-funded. There's no banks underwriting us or anything, and
Yeah.
that's our readers fund the work I'm doing, and that's very, very much appreciated, and makes me choke up thinking about it a little bit because
Yeah.
we don't have work to do unless it's our readers, so we really appreciate that. Yeah.
Right, you bet. Well, and I was just going to mention too, I love how you do the standing in the same exact spot and the effort. Like I saw the one that you posted the other day of you were way up on Harney or one of the peak or something, and
Oh
but the
yeah, Black
camera,
Elk Peak, right?
the
Yeah, it was the
cam
second
Black
one.
Elk, yeah, the
Yeah.
camera
Oh,
was
it's
hanging way out over the edge, and
right.
you
You
had
do
to go
see
to some.
what they were going through. And that one, yeah, again, I said it in the post, he was on this edge, and there was really no reason you have to be on that edge. It would have looked just as good here. But so I was sort of, as it said in the post, reaching over a railing. I was not on that edge, but I was reaching over and put my tripod there where he was standing and bolted or tied it to the railing so it wouldn't fall off the edge of the cliff. But yeah, it's fascinating to me, and that's what I'm always looking for, especially in wilderness or wild places. You kind of can see what the photographer was like, what they're like. There's a big flat rock is a real obvious example. I get to the site and I'm almost like, okay, it must be right here somewhere. And then like, oh, look at this. And there's a big flat rock. That's where he put his tripod because it was a good place to put the tripod. And occasionally you run into that where you can kind of see what their thoughts, their processes were because of the terrain or whatever. But yeah.
Well, and one of my other questions was going to be about it was the standing in the same spot your idea, but it sounds like that idea goes way back, but that's still your that's kind of you've made that your own thing, kind of. That's
Yeah,
what you do.
it's
Yeah.
right. Kind of like people have been doing wildlife photography for 100 years, but there are still photographers who find a way to do it uniquely
Unique,
and
yeah.
better than a lot of other people, maybe, and are still somebody you kind of want to follow and admire because they do such an outstanding job. So I'd like to be that guy, but I mean, I'm just doing what I find interesting. I'm very fortunate now we can kind of like this South Dakota book. I don't even want to tote up the bills, for doing that. I mean, but hopefully when we get the book published, it'll pay off financially, but
Yeah.
also creatively is what I'm getting at. I'm trying to find that mix of something that appeals to me personally as a creative
Yeah.
project, but also will appeal to other people. So
Well, keeps you going, I'm sure.
yeah, that's what does keep you going. That's right.
I
Yeah.
really like what you've been doing too. Maybe you've been doing it for a long time, but I just noticed on your Facebook how you put you'll say like the old picture and then you do
Yeah.
your Photoshop thing where you kind of
Thanks.
erase it and show either direction, new to old or old to
Right.
new or whatever. That's pretty
Yeah,
neat.
for those who haven't seen that, I'm basically I don't mind telling exactly how I do it. It's two layers in Photoshop and I'm erasing the top layer and kind of gradually revealing, as you said, either the old photo or the new photo, depending on which way they were layered. And yeah, people seem to respond to that. And it's increased my my likes and follows and stuff, which I guess is I don't like Facebook at all. But anyway, I
No.
use it because you have to, and at least I
Yeah.
feel like I sort of have to. And
Mm.
but so thank you. I enjoy doing
Yeah.
that. I'll probably be doing more of that.
So the next question is about your process of you must do extensive research before figuring out what you want to shoot and where the exact spot is. How do you figure that out?
Yeah, it's multiple things. I mean, how do I start here? Just Google Earth is very useful. So
Mhm.
I'll just kind of back up to this South Dakota. I'm doing a book right now. I'm working on a book called South Dakota Yesterday and Today, which we hope will be out, less than a year from now. I'm actively shooting. I'm talking to you from a motel in eastern South Dakota right now
Mm.
where I'm working, and so you can get on. I started with a historic photo, so my friend Bob Colby in Sioux Falls has got a massive collection of South Dakota and Dakota Territory before statehood
Mm.
images of the state, towns and cities and landmarks and landscapes and all kinds of stuff. So I kind of started by looking at that and making copies with his permission and then acquiring images from other online archives and occasionally buy my own. But let's say he's got, 10 postcards from the 1910s and 20s of Flandreau, South Dakota. I have those on my computer. I go in Google Earth. I go to Flandreau. I go into Street View and look around downtown. It's like, okay, there's that building that's in this postcard. So I can then triangulate and project, a waypoint, it's called. And I put that into Google Earth. And then later, I do this hundreds and hundreds of times in different towns and locations all over. You can't always get to the
Mm.
exact spot, but often you can get pretty close, even like out in the Badlands, for example, or in the Black Hills, kind of get an idea where that photo was taken. But I'm also kind of working with stuff that's in my head that I've been, doing this a while and kind of have a knowledge of that. But then those waypoints all go into, my phone and GPS software and drive into Flandreau and I can see, okay, I need to turn right and, go to that corner. And sure enough, there's that old bank building I was looking at in the old photo. It's still there. And, then I start setting up to do the shot. Does that kind of explain? That's
Yeah.
that's how I've been doing it since Google Earth came out in about 2008, 2000. I don't know when it came out, but that's when I started using it that way when we were working on a book, a
Oh,
second book,
sure.
Oscar Expedition. It really gave us advantages for finding those historic locations using something anybody can put on their computer.
Hmm.
Before that, you had to be like this high level scientist at Aeros Data Center or something,
Hmm.
looking at very complicated software to even begin to analyze photos like that. So yeah, I got to thank
Yeah.
Google for that
Oh, for
product.
sure. Google Earth. I use that for
Yeah.
when I'm looking for my ghost signs or fading ads in like Minneapolis.
Sure.
I'll
Right,
just go
right.
right driving down the street like I'm actually there
Yeah,
looking at buildings so
exactly.
that I
It's
can
very
mark it.
strange. I
Yeah.
really used it a lot for national park work. I had
Oh,
never been
yeah.
to Yosemite and I was flying around Yosemite. And then you get there and it's like, I feel like I've been here before, and you realize
Hmm.
it's like that drive in Google Earth is what makes you feel like you're hit, like you've been to that spot. So
Oh, yeah. When you get to the actual spot, do you have the physical old picture so you can hold it and look
yes,
zero in on?
right. And, technology keeps kind of marching ahead and helping in this way a little bit. I used to literally print everything out because my computer wasn't bright enough to use outdoors. I'm talking 10 years ago, let's say.
Yeah.
I mean, I would be, with a hood over my head, like the old time photographers, just trying to see my computer. So, yeah, I'll just, briefly the process. I get to the site. I think I've got the camera on the right location. I take a photo and what I'm describing how I do it now. That photo is then transmitted to my laptop, a MacBook Pro, late model. And I say that because the latest MacBooks are so bright, if you trigger the HDR setting, which you can do with an app that somebody has come out with, you can fool the screen into being maximum brightness. You can be in broad daylight and see the picture adequately. So I don't have to print them out anymore, is what I was trying to get at.
Oh,
I
nice.
used to make dozens and dozens of prints just on, low end paper, but I needed that reference, like you said, in the
Yeah.
field. Now I just hold up my laptop. I
Yeah.
tried an iPad for a while and the iPad wasn't quite cutting it, but the
Sure.
laptop does. So I'm looking at that laptop. I wish I could show it to you, but I have a harness. I can wear it around my neck and I can shoot pictures while it's hanging there, look at the
Uh,
picture. And then the photo comes over to the laptop. It's beamed over by Wi-Fi, and I open it in Photoshop, and I've already got the digital historic photo. I put them on top of each other. I scale. I can maybe show you what I'm talking about in this if we want to switch over to the screen here in a little bit. But and I that's how I put these together then. And then I can see, okay, I need to go like this. I need to be over here, not here. The buildings were going like this, and they need to go like this. You know, I'm looking at little clues in the picture that then steer me to the correct location.
hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it
Uh,
does. And
and so I'll take maybe 5, 10, sometimes even 15 or 20 test shots as I'm gradually kind of moving the camera around and trying to get to that location that's
zeroed in.
going to make it look like, a twin image as opposed to just sort of like, I was in the neighborhood, so
Yeah,
to speak.
close enough isn't good. It's got to be,
Yeah,
you got it
yeah.
dialed in. Yeah.
Right. Well, and once
Uh,
in a while things come out that are like, wow, look at that. Now that it's lined up, you're seeing, I was in Parkston this morning. I thought it was at Parkston. And they turned a water tower in the background of the old photo. Now it's a cell phone tower. I mean, they literally took the top off the water tower and put antennas there.
oh,
That kind of thing, that's awesome. That's what just find
yeah.
that interesting.
So how Don is asking, how long does it take to find a location's
Yeah,
exact
that's a
spot?
good question. And it depends on the photo. Pictures of a main street are pretty easy to, I can almost visit them in Google Earth and then just got to get there, drive there and set up and hopefully the right light. Um, there's a, I'll point to a couple of shots from the Custer expedition. There's a famous picture of Custer with a grizzly bear. And we found that in 2002. Uh, it's kind of a long story, but I'll try to be brief. My co-author Ernie Graffy was looking at their diaries and journals, and he had the map that they left us from 1874, and no one had really looked at that material before. So the grizzly bear site had a historic marker on it. It's like, this is where the grizzly bear photo was taken and where Custer shot the bear. And we're like, well, okay, who are we to argue with the State Historical Society and a marker, But the map was pointing Ernie 2 miles away down this valley out in the Black Hills. And he came to me and he goes, it doesn't sound, it looks like it's farther down the campsite where that picture was taken. And, long story short, it took a couple of years. I mean, we had to get permission from landowners and figure out, a lot of other things. But eventually we did find that site 2 miles from where it
Huh.
had always been marked with at a place called Nahant in South Dakota in the Black Hills. It's actually south of there on private property. But so that was a 2-year deal. Our revision of the new book the new copy of Exploring with Custer, I there's another famous photo called the drinking party or the champagne supper. And I had been looking for that for 20 years. I'm
Hmm.
not kidding. And think that I actually have located it now. It's not quite as, that's right here. So this is the old photo. We colorized it,
Yeah.
this photo. And this is the new photo. I'll put them next to each other, but this
Huh.
isn't the greatest presentation. But in any case, again, to answer the question, this one took the better part of 20 years. I'm not exaggerating.
Huh.
And so yeah, it just depends. A picture in a town or a city is probably a little easier to do than one that's way out, like in the Grand Canyon. Let's say I had some awesome experiences about 10 years ago looking for pictures that were taken in 1871 down in the Grand Canyon. That was just a kind of a leap of faith, hiking to the bottom and hoping I would find this spot because I had some clues. There's no Google Earth really down at ground level there.
I'm sure.
So yeah, it just depends. But
Huh. Um,
Strato Bowl Ledge. Oh, and I see the question from Dawn about Strato Bowl Ledge, and maybe
yeah.
she's talking about. So, and I can elaborate a little bit just on what I said earlier. Another way of finding the photo site without Google Earth, and I don't want to make that sound like a magic, formula. It doesn't always work as well as it sounds, but if you can find the background of a historic photo, usually you can work your way to the foreground. So the Stratobowl shot, maybe you're referring to that I did last fall, when they were launching modern balloons from the Stratobowl, which is of course near Rapid City, where the first uh, what do they call that low altitude space balloon was launched in 1935. It got into the upper atmosphere. I had a picture of that event in 1935, and then they're launching modern balloons from the same location. I thought this is perfect. And so I could see these hills in the background, and by lining that up first and then gradually working my way, looking at the middle ground, which are some canyons and roads coming into the Stratobowl, gradually then down to the location where the actual picture was taken. Now, unless there's something right in the foreground, like a really prominent rock or like a burnt stump in some pictures, that we see that are still there after 150 years, without that sort of really close foreground clue, it's possible to be off by, a few feet or a few yards even. The farther away everything in the picture is, sort of the sloppier you can be. But if there's something pretty close, like a building in downtown, you have to kind of account for that. Otherwise, it just doesn't look right. So, yeah. Oh, she says I was in it too. So she must have been in a balloon at the Stratobowl, Dawn
Yeah.
says out there. So that's cool. Well, yeah, that's a great shot. That'll definitely be in this book I'm working on about South Dakota. We'll have a whole bunch of new Black Hills material that I've found other historic photos. Um, I have revisited a few sites that are in this book, but mostly I'm using all new Black Hills material that'll be in the South Dakota book. So
Mm. And before we move on,
yeah,
I thought of another question. Like when you get to a spot and you get a picture like the one you looked for 20 years, the Champagne,
yeah,
whatever what it's called.
yeah.
Do you get a pretty like a nostalgic feeling like I'm at this very spot as
I
far as a
was,
historic
oh yeah,
history geek goes, you're
yeah.
like they were
That's
right there.
probably what I'm trying, kind of looking for a lot of the time. I mean, not every time, but
Yeah.
some of those that are, especially if they're far out in the woods or, park or whatever, those are like you kind of feel like maybe you're the first person that's kind of figured that out, and maybe the first person to
Mm, yeah.
stand there since the photographer did. And certainly there's a lot of places like in national parks where almost literally millions of photographers have stood, but maybe not everybody comprehended that the very first picture, like in Yosemite, a guy named Carlton Watkins, just in the 1860s, was taking these pictures on negatives that were like 16 by 20 inches. I mean, just huge glass
Yeah.
plate negatives. And you think about all the work they went to, hauling the equipment around and horses and mules, carrying all that weight and then to stand there with my 35 millimeter camera and you know I'm only an hour away from the pizza parlor down in the valley or whatever.
Yeah.
Things are a lot easier now, but that's exciting to stand on realize you're on that exact spot. Absolutely. I'm
Yeah.
looking. Yeah.
Right where history took place in
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
sense,
Yeah.
pretty neat. Well, we have some time left here. You want
Okay.
to dive into your current stuff and your new projects and
Sure, sure. Should I try this screen share thing just to kind of,
yeah, sure.
okay, I don't know what I'm gonna end up showing you here that I don't intend to, but we'll see what happens. Let me see if this works here. Are you seeing like,
Down like a main street,
I go to
yeah,
full screen
Yankton.
here almost. Yeah. Let me just try, yeah, this is terrible. I should have sort of had this worked out, but this is I was going to go to full frame, but I guess this will work. So these
Yeah.
folks are not in any order. These are just some selects that I pulled up earlier when Jay and I were talking earlier. But you can hopefully see a lot of these. So that's Yankton, and that yeah, we're obviously in the Yankton. So that's a good example of I just maybe I'm not on the spot because the spot is underwater. But that waterfall, that surprises a lot of people that was ever there. This is on the Cheyenne River down by Hot Springs and where Angostura Lake is now. And But that's that same hill. It's just on, being submerged in the water. So it's another way to kind of show change and similarity. But there's no physical way that I can think of anyway to actually stand on that location. But in any town, this is Sturgis. There was some snow in the in the old photo. So I did go up there in the winter. I don't have a lot of winter shots. They just are a lot more complicated. If there's a lot of snow, it's just kind of silly because it kind of covers everything up. So I don't favor those, but I'll do them. You sometimes, this is at Piedmont, and when this guy took his camera there, um, you know, I mean, high speed traffic would have been a wagon going by at 5 miles an
Mhm.
hour, or maybe a train, and it's almost literally in the middle of the interstate now. And so I'm right there, in the ditch of the interstate, trying to get the same angle on that prominent building. And you can, I'm just a little low, let's put it that way, because I'm in the ditch and I didn't have a ladder. And you can only go so far with some of these things, but it's such a different environment, but kind of close to where I almost couldn't even do that. I love this kind of thing. This is Custer State Park's original west entrance gate, an old highway. They called it a highway. It was gravel, but that got bypassed and the trees just start growing. And now you kind of have this trail almost with these markers. That's the kind of thing I really do love, this sort of a shot in particular. And we are going to have a lot of pictures of our well-known landmarks, of course, such as Mount Rushmore and the same rocks on the right there. Again, my angle isn't exact because the photographer was actually back in the ice cream shop that stands there now, if you can picture the visitor center up there. So, and Jay, you stop me when you think we're got too much going on here, but
Yeah, you're
or
doing
out
good.
of time. But I'll maybe move along here just a little bit. This
Yeah.
one, that's the same tree on the left as in the middle of my picture, but if I moved over there, then you wouldn't see the faces. So I really struggled with this one.
Mm.
If I moved to the right, those other trees would have been in the way. And But you see the same boulders are laying there and stuff. So yeah, sometimes there's a little compromise. Hot springs from a distance. This is interior, and I haven't talked about
Mm.
this, but so this guy, I think it literally says on there. I got some stuff in the way here, that was taken from the water tank, and there is no water tank there now. But I did go to Google Earth. I looked at this. I've been to interior South Dakota many times, but and I could see there was a building on the left there, right going off camera. There's a church, and that was still there. So that's always cool when you've got a building that survives. But
Oh, yeah.
no water tank. So then I used a drone. And that was, again, something that technology, I don't know if I could have done this 10 years ago, or I would have been paying a lot more for the drone. Let's put it that way. But now it's become reasonably affordable. The quality is really good. And so I flew, to the area where the water tank was. I was looking at elevation of those peaks, making sure they kind of bisect the horizon at the same level. And, I take quite a few shots and then I get the drone down, I download them, I look through them, decide if I have to fly again or if I've got something that'll work. But I was pretty happy how this came out. So yeah, any questions on the drone stuff, I'd be glad to do that. I have my license, commercial license. I encourage people, sometimes photographers are kind of working that on the side. And if you're taking money, you should probably have your license, but it's a good safety thing. Anytime I can kind of parallel what's going on in the picture. I don't want to be too corny about it and like pose the same way or anything, but I saw this big truck coming and thought, that's great with this tractor in the old picture to
Mm.
kind of mirror that. So um, this is looking over pier. This was last spring, just a broad shot. I'm focusing mostly on overview type shots, not close-ups of single buildings above Chamberlain. And this was just used by South Dakota Public Broadcasting for a story that they did about what they call the Green Glacier, which is the creeping of vegetation, particularly the eastern red cedar, has escaped from shelter belts and is really just, taken over the landscape on a lot of, ranches and farms, especially along the Missouri River. And I think kind of a fire hazard. I mean, I would be kind of worrying about this if I lived near that, but there it's it's something they're talking about. A lot of work is being done on that now. So I love this. I mean, this is what I'm after right here. White Owl, a little burg, a little town uh, outside the Black Hills, out on the plains. And I know the folks that own this and wonderful people. And the building still has that shape, which is just amazing. And not very many of these wooden buildings in typical small towns, like say, I'll use Flanders again, or you can pick Brookings or any of them. the first generation of buildings were made of wood, and very often they burned. They were in a big fire, and some towns were wiped out by fire, and so they seldom survive. But this one obviously has. And what I didn't expect was that the building way over on the right is also there, and it almost looks like a barn, but it's now a home. I think it probably was a home back then too, but so sometimes you see things like that that are just, yeah, that's what I'm after, I guess. So,
Very
um,
nice.
well, let's see. I'm gonna have to back up the other way here. I'm going really fast. Another drone shot. This is wall, and it took several attempts to get this one to where I kind of felt like I had the angle correct and all of that. But I like that a lot. Wall drug there in the middle, of course, and the grain elevators. Sometimes very relatively few of those survive, but sometimes you'll see one still standing where it was in the old picture. Brookings has a lot of awesome architecture. Um, what I'm what I fear almost when I do a book, when we're gonna do this book, is that I can't possibly explain everything that's going on in these pictures. And I sort of feel like I'm gonna have to just be real minimalist and just let other people, like you could talk about architecture, you've got vegetation, trees growing, traffic, social patterns, all kinds of stuff. But I am interested in the sort of the architectural thing. And back in the 1970s, a lot of towns covered up. People would try to modernize the building or do energy conservation, and they just, took away that beautiful early structure. And Brookings has really got some really beautiful buildings where that did not happen, or they've been restored. And I'm seeing similar things in Aberdeen. Huron is doing some wonderful stuff. Sioux Falls, of course, they tore down a lot of their historic buildings, but the ones that are there, they're trying to preserve. So it's nice to see that. This Brookings. There's the Strata Bowl shot we were talking about a little while ago. Shot that last fall, and they were launching at sunrise, so that's when we were shooting. And but again, the background hills tells me right away which direction I need to be, which side of the Strata Bowl, and then you can kind of start looking for the angle on. There's a little valley there in the middle. I could see that, and get that. The road that comes in on the lower right is still present, so that was easy to line up on. And yeah, that worked out pretty well. It's downtown Sioux Falls. I actually had a comment on Facebook where somebody said they didn't think this was the right spot, and they might be right. It's really hard to tell when there's very few modern clues, but I do know that the Wells Fargo building is standing where the building in the background there was called the Cataract Hotel, and there was no question that was on that corner. So I'm within a few feet, but I don't know if I'm on exactly the right spot. But
And interestingly enough, on the right-hand side, there's still a sign sticking out from that same
yeah,
spot in the old
yeah,
picture.
it's
We're
kind of
advertising
kind of
something.
cool.
Yeah.
I can't quite, and we're getting into the weeds here, but I can't quite decide if that's the same building or not. And I queried the person that sent me that comment, and I think they work in this building and know about it, but I haven't heard back. But I'm going to go look at that next time I'm in Sioux Falls, and if I can
Yeah.
tweak it, I will. I hope I can get the drink wagon going by again. I thought that was kind of a hoot, but in the
Yeah.
background. Love the Badlands, and it's hard to go wrong there. But a lot of these early photographers were literally taking photos of the roadway to let people know we have roads now. We've got decent
Mm.
roads in South Dakota. They're trying to encourage travel, and you wouldn't take off in your Model T unless you were, reasonably sure you could make it. Again, there's long captions about all of these probably, but this is a guy that explored Wind Cave, and he's buried on this spot, and they're having a ceremony for him there. And yeah, he's there underneath all that vegetation. So Wind Cave, this is Hot Springs, quite a bit of change there in this area of town. And then maybe I'll end with this one, but this is in Custer, which is where I live. And the old picture, I'm always watching for this stuff. And I was actually looking at other material, another subject, and opened a folder. And here was this photo of Gold Discovery Days in 1924, which I think is the first year they had a parade. Gold Discovery Days started in 1923. But anyway, they've had a parade every year since. And so lo and behold, it was not 2024 yet. So I got permission to go up on the roof of that building and shoot this in 2024. So these are exactly 100 years apart, which is kind of fun. And a little bit of irony, the main float in the old photo was sponsored by Homestake Mining Company. And it's like the whole thing is about how much gold they've gotten out of the ground in the last 50 years from 1876 to, 1924. The new float is the Black Hills Clean Water Alliance, which is anything
Mhm.
but a mining advocate. It's just kind of how far we've come in 100 years. That hopefully we want to care for the land. I mean, we need mining, and it's a good industry in the Black Hills, but let's take care of what we've got for land and clean water too. So that was kind of
Yeah,
fun to use that. But
awesome.
well, yeah, I did say I would stop. So, oh yeah, there's the
Yeah.
last one. Harding, South Dakota, which the business block, as it says there. Yeah, I actually saw that postcard on eBay and said, I know where that is. I know where those buildings are. I've got to have that. And so I
Wow.
acquired it on eBay, and that's up in Harding County in northwestern South Dakota. So I am
Nice.
trying to make this a statewide book. I'm not going to be able to get every town in there, but I'm trying to get a very good representative sample of the smallest possible towns, like we just saw, the largest cities, and a bunch of stuff in between,
Oh,
and,
nice.
and then a lot of landmarks and landscapes as well.
Yeah. Well, when you showed the interior shot, Elizabeth said that she'll be in interior next week and she
Oh,
can't wait.
nice.
So,
Yeah, it's a beautiful, I mean, that area is just awesome right there. The
yeah.
mountains and yeah.
I suppose around this, I don't know what if she's out there. The about this time is probably their rodeo, big
Could be.
rodeo
That's
time,
right.
right,
Could be.
August. Yeah,
Could be.
I don't know for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, going to the rodeo. She said that's what I thought. Yeah, I can't remember what it's called, but I know it's
Oh yeah.
about this time. And
Right.
yeah, neat. Very cool. Well, we're getting close to the
Yeah.
time, but just to wrap up, I'll skip over some things here. And so,
Okay.
if you could, this is getting deep stuff now.
All
If
right. I'll
you
try to be brief.
if you could go back and give advice to your younger self just starting out, what would you say? For
Oh
those
boy.
people that might be listening to this that are aspiring book
Yeah.
authors or
Gosh,
something like that.
it is hard to believe it's been so long since I was a young person, but it happens to everybody, I guess. So um I was going to joke and say buy Apple computer at $7 a
Yeah.
share, but before the iPhone, um, I've always tried to save for the future, so that's helped, and I did buy some Apple, but not quite at seven. But anyway, I guess follow your path. I mean, I kind of did that, but I got veered off. I worked at Aeros Data Center as a darkroom technician for a while. I mean, it was photography related, but it wasn't really the high point of my career. Because I'd kind of lost my focus a little bit. I actually gave up photography when I went back to SDSU because I had kind of burned out at the Argus Leader. And I guess I could say that I could have talked to myself then, I would have said, there are things other than news photography. And gradually I did learn that. I'd so focused on becoming a news photographer for quite a while there in high school and early college that I just totally burned out on it. I mean, it was very stressful. And
Yeah.
for me, a lot of people handle that better probably. And so then I realized, oh, there's this landscape photography, and there's other types of work you can do. So look for an alternate path if you get stopped, I guess. I'm not giving
Okay.
myself very good advice. I don't know. I probably,
Well, you kind of develop by learning through life,
yeah,
and this
that's
thing
right.
happens and you shift in that
Yeah,
direction. And
yeah. If you get stopped, back up and try to move
yeah,
forward again.
yeah.
That's kind of in a nutshell what I'm trying to say, probably.
Do you have time for one more question and then some
Absolutely.
questions from the audience? Okay.
Yeah, by all
So
means.
is my last question is well, I have more, but I'll have to contain
Oh, that's all
myself. But
right. Okay.
this one is
No.
what is there a place or a project that you've like the holy grail of projects that you have in mind you haven't done yet, but you
This will
it's
sound
in
cliche, but I feel like I'm doing that right now. I really do.
yeah,
This
you
Dakota project has been absolutely a joy. And it's hard work, and I'm hitting 5 towns a day sometimes, and I'm
uh,
closing in on the end, but this is really what I've wanted to do for a long time. And
nice.
as I said, the technology wasn't quite there. Drones weren't there yet. The transmission, the camera, the bright screen that I've got now that works really well for this process, I've sort of developed, for myself working on this. So I'm really enjoying that. But I've thought, I mean, this is really pie in the sky, and that's what you asked about. So I've thought
Mhm.
about landmarks of the world type of thing. You
Oh,
know, you could
yeah.
do the pyramids, the Great Wall of China. You know, there's lots of. I was in France a few years ago just for a visit, and I actually dragged along some old stereo views. They're available easily for a few
Yeah.
pennies, and I actually did shoot a couple of things over there and in Greece actually. There were photographers photographing the Greek ruins in the 1880s and 90s, and you can easily get copies of those. And some of that stuff is still there, believe it or not. So yeah, it's kind of so I don't know. We'll see. I'm
Uh,
not burning to do that one. I just thought it was kind of fun to check that out.
you
I
never know.
encourage anybody who wants to try this. You're not hurting my feelings, please. I don't have a patent on this, and I hope other people will try it. I hear about
Well,
people doing their family vacations. They were in Yellowstone, 40 years ago with their parents, and there they are again in front of Old Faithful. So that's really cool. People are doing this repeat photography or
yeah.
photography in their own venues. So
One thing that I really like from I learned it from watching yours, but I've caught on to these guys on. There's maybe one guy on the Facebook. He does World War II
yes,
then and now, where they're like
yes,
some
really good
scene in
ones.
yeah, some scene in
Right.
Europe, and it's so
Yeah.
cool.
It
Yeah,
was Gestapo headquarters. Now it's a hotel or something. I
yeah,
mean,
or something like that, or
unbelievable. Right. No,
like
those are really fascinating. Um,
yeah,
yeah, it's easier to do stuff that's more recent, like from the 40s, 50s, and 60s, because more of the structures survive. You get back in
yeah.
the 1890s, it's a lot harder.
A lot of
But
it's
anyway, I
gone.
like those too. I love, World War II history as well.
Yeah. Huh.
Yeah,
Well,
I
we
do.
should. Oh, go
I'm
ahead.
really, yeah. Oh, I was just going to say, I mean, it's probably obvious, but I do really enjoy history, and to me,
Yeah.
this is just a way to step into that a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome.
I'm meeting just
Um,
the nicest people. Today I was in two different museums in small towns, and just the nicest, sweetest people trying to keep these places going and doing a great job with it and preserving what they have in their town. And yeah, that's been a joy too. I just wanted to throw that out there.
And before I forget, we'll open it up to the to
Yeah.
listeners and stuff here, but
Okay.
where can everybody is chomping at the bit probably to go and get one of your books.
Oh, let's hope so.
What's the best spot? Like is it
Well,
paulhorsted.com
yeah,
or
just my website. If that, I know that's not for everybody. I'll be honest, I've been on Amazon for a long time, but I'm not on there right now. They've just made it more and more difficult. But that's the little guy griping about the big industrial giant. So
yeah,
website and you will get a personally signed and I'll ship it to you. I pack and ship all of those, and I do a lot of those every year. It's awesome to be in touch with readers that way. But that'll help me the most. But they do have books I should
right.
emphasize, especially in the Black Hills, the Journey Museum, Mitzi's books, Prairie Edge, a lot of the museums in Custer, Deadwood. I'm sorry, not Deadwood, Spearfish, Sturgis. I mean, a lot of museums have our books because they tend to be historically in nature.
Yeah.
But you can always just get a hold of me or call me on the phone. I'll
Well,
be help you.
and it's most helpful to you as the author of it to for somebody to buy it directly from you and
If
not
that
have
suits
the
people, I sure don't
yeah,
mind
yeah.
wherever they get them, But
Is
yeah,
it
you bet.
is it paulhorsted.com
That's
is the
correct. H O
okay,
R S T E D. Yep.
I'll
Yep.
put that in the notes
Yeah,
here.
and yeah, it works. I get orders that way, so
Yeah,
I
cool.
always wonder if you got the right website going or whatever, but it looks like it's working okay. So
Good.
yeah,
Well, anybody have any questions or comments? You can feel free to
yeah,
open up your microphones and
lay it on
ask a
me.
question or so. Well, go ahead. Somebody sounds like
Okay.
somebody has one.
All right.
Elizabeth.
Well, this is Elizabeth. So this is more of a comment. I was so excited to see this pop up because 10 years ago, my significant other passed away, and 2 years later, I was laid off. So I was at home, and a friend of mine had posted that you were doing a book signing, and it was, I think, the Black Hills Yesterday and Today book. So I just commented on her post and I said, "Oh man, that book looks great. Someday, if I ever find a job," I'd been out of a job almost a year at that point. I said, "If I ever find a job, get in that book." And within a day, you had messaged me, asked me for my address, and not only sent me just that book, but you also sent me the Treasures of the National Parks. Those are the only two books on my coffee table.
Nice.
Everybody who comes over, I make sure they look at them. They
Uh,
tell the whole
Well, thank
story.
you.
That was so awesome. Thank you so much.
Well, you're most welcome. Gosh,
very
that's nice
nice.
to hear. And word of mouth is our best advertising. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
I was so 4 years ago. So I live in Wisconsin. So I'm coming out for the rodeo in
Oh,
Wisconsin.
nice.
But
All right.
4 years ago, we were in Wall, and I went in the bookstore, and I'm like, okay, I've had a job now, so I'm getting the Explorer Exploring with Custer book, and I did,
Well,
and I have never seen it since I got home.
oh, because you missed. Oh,
Yeah, I don't know where it went, but we'll be
missed
back
here.
in we'll
Yeah, I
be
should
back
have
in
mentioned
Wall
Wall
next
Drug.
week.
That's the danger of listing my bookstores because I'll forget somebody. But yeah, Wall Drug's got them and
Yeah.
took some to
Yeah,
the Badlands Natural History Association out in Badlands. So
yep.
yeah, ask for them wherever you get your books, and hopefully they'll order some. But
And I
oh,
did just get
Nice.
the last copy of your Custer book off Amazon while you were talking.
great,
Nice.
great, good for you.
Way to
That's
go.
fine. They do sell them there. I may or may not be the vendor on there, but
I don't
Jason,
think you were, but it said there was
anything
only
else?
one left.
Great.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay. Great.
Awesome.
Well,
Anybody else have questions? Craig, Don, or
yeah, we
Terry?
covered it all, I guess.
And maybe I had one, well, if people are thinking of, I have a quick one
Sure.
for you that I've been
Yeah.
on my mind is the writing part of it.
Yeah.
Are you writing the information also? And what does that include?
Yeah. So the Custer books I co-authored with Ernie Graffi, and then my friend John Nelson also joined us for a second book we did called Crossing the Plains with Custer. But and they did a lot of the writing. And I don't call myself a writer, but I do write some stuff. I do write the captions, like for the Black Hills yesterday and today, again with oversight from Ernie Graffi, who's also a great editor, and people like Dr. David Wolf from Spearfish, kind of have been kind enough to look over everything. He's a well-known historian in the Black Hills, and I usually have two or three people at least to kind of look everything over, whose opinions I respect and their knowledge of history to make sure I'm not pulling some really bad mistake. But I do the writing in the captions, I'll call it, and an introduction maybe or something. But
Nice.
mostly I'm on the photos. So, yeah, my again credit to my co-author Ernie Graffi and my partner Camille. She reads everything as well, and I mean, just the more eyes you have, the better. But having her right there with me at home, looking things over, is always a comfort. And so we try to get it right, and if we make a mistake, we fix it and print it, reprint correctly the next time. And that's one thing as speaking as the publisher, I've noticed other publishers sometimes don't do that. They just keep reprinting and reprinting, and they never fix
Oh,
anything. So yeah, I don't want to be that guy.
cool.
But I
Well,
like I
hey,
like I like writing, but I of course the photography is my emphasis.
sure. Yeah. Any other questions or comments?
I just wanted to say thank you for coming on and visiting with us tonight.
Appreciate it. Thanks very much.
I last year I was at the shootout with Jay, and
Oh,
where was that location that we were at, Jay?
Oh yeah, he's been out there. It was the
Yeah,
Chad
that was
Coppus's
cool.
Chad Coppus's wife's sister's place out by what was the name of that area?
It was out by Edgemont.
Edgemont. Yeah. Paul,
oh,
you
Yeah,
remember there was a big campsite there and there's
Kohler
yeah,
Ranch, Kohler
maybe
Ranch,
yeah.
Kohler
There,
Ranch.
yeah,
yeah, I think that was
yeah.
Yeah,
it.
they're great
We did
people.
it.
And Custer went there.
Yeah.
Yeah, he took
And
yeah.
well, I just remember I commented to Jay, I was walking along, and just imagining, and he put on some native music for me.
Oh, nice,
So,
nice.
so,
Yeah.
Well, it
but
was
Yeah,
it
that's
was
a
such an
beautiful area.
yeah, because he has the spot with the buffalo tracks coming down the rocks and
Right.
some
It's
some native
Mhm.
art, some artwork on the
amazing.
rocks, and
I mean, I'll be honest, when I first heard about that, I went, that can't be. And then I looked at it and I went, that's what it looks like. I mean, that is amazing that the all those bison steps in the sandstone for those who have
Yeah.
it's really incredible. So that's the Kohler Ranch. And Custer was camped where the town of Custer is, or right nearby, and they took a group of soldiers, a couple of companies, and went to the Cheyenne River, south end of the Black Hills, on kind of a little side trip from their main expedition route up in the Black Hills. So, yep, that's a really historic spot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he pulled your book out and was showing it
Oh,
to us, and
nice. Oh,
Yeah.
again, that's
because we were
great.
standing there up by the rock where he thought maybe someone had carved something about the
Okay.
Custer, whatever.
Yeah, they
But
got the
you
word
can,
Ludlow, and there's a name Ludlow, but I think it has a date of like 1878 or something next to it. It's a
oh
little after Custer, but you never know what might have happened. I often said you can't make up stranger things than really happened, and so anything is
yeah.
possible. But
Well, and his
yeah,
son and his family have a ranch place down there. Pretty much their horse area is where the campsite. He showed
okay,
us where the flat campground
right,
was.
right.
It's now
Yeah, that map,
pasture,
again,
basically.
that map they made in 1874, it's kind of broad, but it's accurate in a lot of ways. You can see the bend in the river that's on that ranch on that map,
Yeah,
and there's no question where they were. But I should say Chad Coppice is an old pal, and I think I hired him as an intern at the Department of Tourism way back in
I
the back in the 80s, and we were both interns, and then he ended up. I had that job for about 3 years, and then he had it for such a long time at South Dakota Tourism and did such an awesome job. And
yeah.
so he's a good
He's
friend and
he's told me
outstanding
that
Yeah.
story a few times. So
photographer. Okay, all right, all right.
yeah, he couldn't make it tonight. He
But
really wanted to be, but yeah,
Oh yeah, that's okay. No, listen, but yeah, we bump into
well, it was just a cool location. I went home and I told my dad, and he's like, "Well, I have Paul's book, and so I have
okay,
probably a first or second edition
okay,
of Exploring with
yeah,
Custer from my
great.
dad." So,
Yeah, that's
oh,
all in
cool,
there, I think. So yeah, yeah,
yeah.
very good.
excellent. And Craig's typed in, oh, really
Sorry.
appreciate this Zoom session. Very informative.
Oh, good. Thanks, Greg. Thank you.
Very good. Well, no one else has any comments or questions. Maybe
All right.
we'll
You can
wrap
always
it up
email
so we
me
can.
from my website if something comes up. I try
Yeah.
to be responsive and, don't mind hearing from people. So, yeah, thank you.
All right.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for being here tonight, Paul. It was a
My
great
pleasure,
talk.
Greg. I really
Yeah.
Yeah,
appreciate it.
thanks to both
Nice
of
to
you.
talk to everybody.
We will put this when I get a chance. I put the video recording for this on my YouTube
Great.
channel along with the other episodes, and then I take the audio portion of it and put it on the audio version of my podcast. So there's
All
two
right.
different
Well,
ways to listen or
yeah,
watch. So
that'll pass an hour or two on the interstate someday when I'm
yeah, that's
driving.
what I mean. Yeah,
Also, I'll
yeah.
definitely check it out.
Look up our Greg Lotza interview or whatever and
Yeah,
listen to
I need to do that. Yeah, I
that.
just saw him this morning. It was a hoot. So,
Bill Markley, a couple weeks ago, we had Bill Markley in,
yeah,
and
yeah,
all interesting stuff. So I
it
haven't
sure
got
is.
the next guest lined up yet, but I'll be
Good.
working on that for next month. So
Well, keep up the good
all right.
work,
All
Jay.
right.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Paul.
Great.
Thank you
Okay.
Thank
so
you,
much.
everyone.
Thank
Bye.
you all for coming. All right.
Good
You
night,
stay
everybody.
Good night. Bye bye.